At Elias Thorne's wedding reception to Victoria Sterling, the atmosphere was shattered when his cousin, Julian Vance, slashed open his trousers. He revealed a tattoo etched high on his inner thigh, the name Victoria Sterling, and declared his undying love for her in front of the entire elite crowd. A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. It was common knowledge that Victoria Sterling was obsessively devoted to her husband. She was the ultimate hopeless romantic of the corporate world. The last man who had dared to flirt with her in front of Elias was currently 6 feet under. As expected, Julian, who had carved out a modest name for himself in the entertainment industry, was blacklisted and erased from the public eye by the following morning. Elias assumed it was merely a bizarre footnote to their wedding day. But 2 months later, an anonymous file landed in his inbox. In a video, Victoria was sitting on Julian's lap. She gripped his chin, her eyes burning with a raw, heated desire Elias had never seen directed anywhere but at himself. "My sweet little pet," she whispered in the clip. "Where else did you tattoo my name?" Listening to the heavy, rhythmic breathing through the speakers, Elias felt as though a cold hand had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart until it bled. His hand shook uncontrollably. He couldn't wrap his head around it. This woman, his wife, who claimed to have eyes only for him and never allowed another man within 5 feet of her, was sleeping with the cousin he loathed most. Elias stormed into her home office. Victoria was in the middle of a high-stakes Zoom conference, but the moment she saw him, her icy professional aura melted into warmth. "Elias? Honey, what are you doing here? Did you miss me?" Before she could finish, Elias shoved his phone in front of her face. His voice cracked with betrayal. "Is this real?" Victoria's face drained of color. Elias let out a hollow, tragic laugh. Her silence was the only confirmation he needed. He didn't wait for her to chase after him. He sprinted out of the office, immediately called his lawyer to handle the divorce, and booked a flight out of the country. But Victoria intercepted him at O'Hare International Airport. She threw a battered, blood-soaked Julian onto the terminal floor before pulling a knife and stabbing herself 3 times in the abdomen. "Elias," she gasped, her face deathly pale. "He provoked you, so I've dealt with him. As for me, if you aren't satisfied, you can kill me. Just don't leave. Give me one more chance, please." Looking at the bleeding woman, Elias forced himself to look away. He knew the rule. Infidelity was never a one-time mistake. It was a character flaw. He couldn't be soft, but they had been together for 10 years. 10 years of his life. How many decades did a man get? The war between his logic and his heart was brutal, but eventually his history with her crushed his resolve. "Our past is only enough to buy you one second chance," he said, his voice cold. "If there's a next time, I won't care if you die right in front of me. I will never forgive you again. There won't be. I swear." Victoria gripped his hand, her eyes frantic. "Elias, I won't let myself be deluded a second time." In the months that followed, Victoria became even more suffocatingly attentive. She doted on him to a degree that left their social circle speechless. Half a year passed, and Elias finally began to let the wall between them crumble. Then, the day before his birthday, Julian sent another video. In this one, Julian was wearing a dog collar. Victoria was on top of him, and the bell on the collar chimed rhythmically with her movements. The timestamp on the video was from 6 months ago. 6 months. It meant that the moment the initial scandal had blown over, she had gone straight back to Julian's bed. There hadn't even been a gap. Attached to the video was a digital copy of a lab report. Victoria was 2 months pregnant. In the column for the biological father, it listed Julian Vance. A wave of nausea hit Elias, so hard he barely made it to the bathroom. He retched until his throat burned and his stomach was empty, leaving only a searing pain in his chest. He couldn't understand it. How could he love her with every fiber of his being while she could claim to love him while sleeping with his worst enemy? Why promise him faithfulness if she couldn't keep it? Why put him through the agony of betrayal a second time? After a long time, Elias retrieved the divorce papers he had saved and drove to Victoria's corporate headquarters. Outside her office, he was about to push the door open when he heard voices inside. "Victoria, seriously? You're back with Julian?" It was one of her inner circle friends. "You know, Elias has hated him since they were kids, and Julian is a snake. Last time he leaked the affair just to force your hand. Now that you're carrying his kid, he's going to get even bolder. Aren't you afraid he'll blow it all up again?" He wouldn't dare. Victoria's voice was like shards of ice. "Unless he wants to find out what it feels like to have his limbs shattered again." "And what about Elias? Secrets always come out. If he finds out, he won't forgive you a second time." "He won't find out," she said, her tone suddenly turning terrifyingly tender. But if he does, I'll just lock him away, in a place where only the two of us exist. A chill raced down Elias's spine. He gripped the divorce papers until his knuckles turned white and instinctively backed away. She was insane. He turned to leave, but caught sight of a familiar figure in the hallway. Julian Vance. He couldn't let Victoria know he had been there, so he ducked into a nearby supply alcove, planning to wait until the coast was clear. Minutes later, he saw Julian knock and enter. Victoria's friends filtered out shortly after. Not long after they left, a series of muffled, rhythmic thuds and crashes echoed from inside the office. The friends standing by the elevators shared suggestive smirks. Damn, Victoria really knows how to play. Pregnancy roleplay plus the office desk? Sounds like a war zone in there. In the corner, Elias's body went rigid. He closed his eyes and covered his ears, but he couldn't block out the phantom sounds or the dull ache spreading through his soul. 15 minutes later, once the hallway was empty, Elias stepped out with heavy feet. As he passed the door, he heard Julian's muffled voice. Who's better, me or my big brother Elias? Tell me, or I'm stopping. In this room, obviously you're better. At that moment, Elias heard something inside him shatter with crystalline clarity. He couldn't take another second. He ran. As he reached the street, his phone buzzed. It was Victoria. Elias? Are you home? It's time for your medicine. Don't you dare pour it down the sink. When Elias was 13, Julian had stolen $2,000 from a neighbor. Elias's father, who favored Julian, had forced Elias to take the fall. The neighbor had beaten Elias so badly his right leg was broken, leaving him with a permanent, slight limp. 2 years ago, Victoria had been attacked in the street, and Elias had jumped in front of her, taking a blow that worsened the old injury. To prevent him from becoming a total cripple, Victoria had hired the best specialists in the country. The treatment worked, but because the holistic infusions were so bitter, Elias often skipped them. Victoria had made it a habit to call and remind him every day. Listening to her voice, slightly out of breath but still so gentle, Elias didn't know what to feel. Should he be touched that she paused mid-affair to check on his health? Or should he be in agony that she could care so much while destroying him? Before he could process it, Victoria let out a sharp, breathless gasp. The call disconnected. Elias stared at the dark screen for a long time. Just as he turned to walk away, a car speeding the wrong way down the one-way street clipped him. The side mirror hooked into his coat, dragging him 20 yards across the asphalt. By the time the world stopped spinning, he realized he was sprawled on the pavement, a pool of warm blood spreading beneath his right leg. Elias was rushed to the emergency room. After the scans, the lead resident looked grim. The injury to the right leg is severe, especially with the scar tissue from previous trauma. If we don't operate immediately, it'll be a permanent disability. Page Dr. Miller. She's the best orthopedic surgeon we have for this. The nurse looked panicked. Dr. Miller can't come. What do you mean? She's not in surgery today. The hospital's major donor, Ms. Sterling, just arrived. She brought in a gentleman with a fractured arm and demanded Dr. Miller handle it personally. She moved her to the VIP wing. In the haze of pain, Elias regained a sliver of consciousness. He saw his doctor rush out and return minutes later, face livid. That Vance guy just bumped his arm because they were being too vigorous in the office. It's a hairline fracture. Any intern could set it, the doctor hissed. I told them this man is facing a permanent disability, and they told me that Ms. Sterling's orders were absolute. She said even if the patient over here was dying, he wasn't as important as Mr. Vance's arm. Elias didn't hear the rest. He only felt the waves of fire lashing at his leg. When he woke up again, the nurse told him the truth. His leg would never be the same. He would be a cripple for life. As the nurse tried to comfort him, his phone rang. Victoria's joyous voice filled the room. Elias, your checkup results came back early. The doctor said with 2 more months of physical therapy, you'll be 100% recovered. Her excitement was palpable even through the phone. Elias looked down at his mangled leg and laughed. It was a sound more harrowing than a sob. Major donor Ms. Sterling. Injured Mr. Vance. Vigorous activity. He didn't need to guess who had diverted the surgeon. Oh, and Elias, I have even better news, she chirped. I am pregnant. We're having a baby. And since today is your birthday, it's a double celebration. Elias went cold. The pain and humiliation felt like twin blades carving into his heart. Our baby? No, it was her and Julian's baby. Today was his birthday. This was her gift. To make him a cuckold and then force him to raise a child that wasn't even his? Hearing him laugh, Victoria assumed he was happy. I knew you'd be thrilled. I'm stuck at the office with some errands, but I'll be home tonight to celebrate. She hung up. Minutes later, Elias dialed his former professor. Sir, is that classified research project abroad still open? Can I join? Of course. We'd love to have you. But Elias, it's a 3-year commitment in a dark site facility. You're a newlywed. Are you sure you want to leave your wife for that long? After a long silence, Elias's voice was raspy. Yes, he needed to disappear. A government-level project with high security clearance was the perfect place to hide. All right, pack your bags. Report to the facility in 48 hours. Elias checked himself out of the hospital against medical advice. As he limped past a VIP suite, he froze. Through the glass, he saw Victoria and Julian. She was gently blowing on a spoonful of porridge, carefully feeding him. It was a mundane scene, but it hit Elias with a physical force that made him double over. He remembered the day he met Victoria. He was 16. Julian had been misdiagnosed with kidney failure, and Elias's father had tried to force Elias to donate a kidney. When Elias refused, his father beat him and threw him out. If you won't save your brother, you're no son of mine. Don't expect a dime from me. Elias hadn't understood why his father loved his nephew more than his own son. He only found out later that Julian was his father's illegitimate child from an affair with his sister-in-law. That night, Elias had collapsed in the pouring rain, hungry and broken. He woke up to find Victoria, Sterling, by his bed. He had spent years believing Victoria would only ever cook for him, only ever look at him with those bright, devoted eyes. But her tenderness was a commodity, and she was currently spending it on the man he hated most. Elias took a deep breath and limped away. That evening, Victoria came home and practically tackled Elias into a hug. We're having a baby. We're finally having a baby. The powerful CEO was acting like a schoolgirl. She knew how much Elias wanted a family. She figured she could keep the paternity a secret and use the child to tether him to her forever. Look, Elias, she said, pointing to boxes on the floor. I've already bought baby clothes and heirloom silver locket toys. I've hired the best nannies and specialists. The nursery furniture arrives tomorrow. She babbled on until she noticed his silence. What's wrong? Are you just in shock? She took his hand and pressed it against her lower belly. Here, feel our baby. The moment his hand touched her skin, the image of the pregnancy report flashed in his mind. The veins on his hand bulged with suppressed rage. Victoria noticed nothing. Elias, think of a name. Once the baby is here, we'll be the perfect family. Elias's heart cramped. He couldn't take the theater anymore. He stood up abruptly. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. She followed him up, hovering by the bedside. Suddenly, a crack of thunder shook the house, and Victoria's phone buzzed. Elias, something came up at work. I have to go. I might not be back tonight. She rushed out without waiting for a reply. Elias watched her go, his heart turning to stone. He knew there was no work emergency. She was going to Julian. Julian had been terrified of thunder since they were children. The next day, Victoria threw a massive gala. Since she had missed his actual birthday, she claimed this was a redo. At the party, guests watched with envy as Victoria hovered over Elias, catering to his every need. To the world, she was the perfect wife, wealthy, beautiful, and utterly devoted. If I could find a love like that in my next life, I'd die happy, someone whispered. A week ago, that would have made Elias smile. Now it was just a sick joke. Victoria wasn't different from any other serial cheater. She was just greedier. She wanted the husband and the lover, so she hid the latter. Halfway through the gala, Victoria kissed his knuckles. You look tired. Sit here and rest. I see an old business associate I need to greet. I'll be right back. She was gone for 30 minutes. Then, her executive assistant ran up to Elias, looking frantic. Mr. Thorne, there's an emergency at the firm. I can't reach Ms. Sterling. Have you seen her? Seeing the assistant's genuine panic, Elias got up to help look. As he reached the third-floor walk-in closet, he heard a sound. He walked toward it. He stopped, feeling as though he'd been nailed to the floor. Through the cracked door, he saw Victoria and a disheveled Julian Vance tangled together on a pile of designer clothes. Victoria, why do you buy me so many clothes? Julian's voice was muffled. I'm always in a lab coat anyway. I like buying things for you. Science says spending money on people you love boosts your mood, even if you don't wear them. Oh, and Elias, look at these shirts I made for you. Do you like them? The memory of Victoria presenting him with those hand-stitched shirts collided with the sight of her using them as a literal floor mat for her affair. Elias wanted to scream, to kick the door down, and demand to know how she could be so reckless. How she could desecrate their memories in the very house they had built together. His vision blurred with red. He raised his foot to kick the door, but logic stopped him. He couldn't blow his cover yet. Not until he was ready to disappear. He retreated, his fists clenched so tight his palms bled. 30 minutes later, Victoria returned. She had clearly showered. Her hair was damp and smelled of fresh soap. When she found him, Elias was looking at a text Julian had just sent. I know you were outside the door. You saw everything, didn't you? Even on your birthday. Even while she's pregnant, all I have to do is snap my fingers and she loses control. Has she ever lost control like that for you? I think we both know who she really loves. Victoria snatched the phone from his hand. Elias? What are you looking at? I called your name 3 times. She looked down. If she glanced at the screen, she'd see the chat. She'd know he knew. Elias, why do you look so nervous? Are you afraid of me seeing your messages? Elias's breath hitched. Victoria suddenly laughed. I'm just teasing. I never look at your phone without permission. Here. She handed it back without looking. Elias turned the screen off. Can you have dinner at home with me tonight? He asked. He was leaving in 2 days. He had to end this. Victoria hesitative. Tonight. Elias's smile faltered. He had seen the second part of Julian's text. We went for a long time today. Victoria is coming over tonight to help me with my arm and stay the night. Sorry, looks like you're sleeping alone again. If I insist you stay for dinner? Elias asked. Then, of course I'll stay with my husband. Victoria pinched his cheek playfully. Stop being so gloomy. Smile for me. Elias forced a grin. That night, as they sat at the dining table, Victoria looked at the spread. So much food. Is this for the baby? Elias felt a sharp pang. Yeah, it's all high protein, good for the health. Eat up. Victoria laughed. Yes, sir. As she started eating, Elias checked his watch. 7 minutes. 8 minutes. 9 minutes. The sedative candle he'd lit was almost ready to take effect. But then Victoria's phone rang. Elias grabbed her phone, turned it off, and tossed it aside. Don't answer it. You promised tonight was for me. Victoria snatched it back, turned it on, and stood up, grabbing her coat. It's my assistant. Something must be wrong at the office. I am sorry, Elias. We'll do this another night. The door slammed shut. Elias remembered a time when a multi-billion-dollar deal couldn't pull Victoria away from him if he asked her to stay. Now, a single text from Julian was enough to make her run. He didn't even have the power to hold her interest for 10 minutes. Victoria didn't return until the next morning. As she entered, she saw movers carrying a large crate out. What's this? Mr. Thorne said these are trash, ma'am, the mover replied. Victoria nodded, but after a few steps, she doubled back and tore the lid open. Inside were the shirts she had hand-stitched for Elias. He used to treat them like holy relics. Why was he throwing them away? Had he seen something yesterday? When she and Julian were in the closet, Julian had complained about the cold floor, and she'd pulled the shirts down to use as a cushion. Did Elias find out? She ran to the bedroom. Elias was packing. Why did you throw those clothes away? She asked, her voice trembling. Because I'm angry, he said simply. I'm angry you broke your promise last night. Victoria's tension vanished. Is that all? She hugged him from behind. I'm so sorry. I'll stay home today. I'll make it up to you. Let's have that dinner now. Fine. But only if we do it now. Minutes later, they were back at the table. Elias lit the candle again. He watched her eat, counting the seconds. Once she signed the papers, he was gone. He couldn't stay in this house for another hour. That morning, Julian had sent a flash drive. It was filled with videos of him and Victoria. They weren't just in hotels. They were in this house. In the kitchen, the study, the living room. Places Elias and Victoria had designed together, filled with their memories. Elias, do you think Victoria thinks of me every time she looks at the sofa? Julian had texted. Elias realized why Victoria would sometimes space out while looking at the furniture and smile, or bite her lip. She wasn't thinking of their marriage. She was thinking of the affair. He checked his watch. 5 minutes in. Then Victoria's phone buzzed. A message from Julian. Victoria, my arm hurts so bad. We must have played too hard last night. Come take care of me. Victoria's expression shifted instantly. Elias, another emergency? Fine, Elias said, pulling out the divorce papers and flipping to the last page. Sign this, and you can go. His flight was in 2 hours. This was his last shot. He was gambling that the candle had made her just foggy enough not to read the title, and that her rush to get to Julian would outweigh her caution. She didn't even look at the document. She scribbled her signature. There, I'm going, Elias. 10 years. He had loved her since he was 16, when she found him in the rain. They had survived everything, or so he thought. 6 months ago, she had broken Julian's bones to prove her love. Today, she was running to him because of Scratch, not even realizing she'd just signed away her marriage. Victoria, he called out. She paused, but her phone rang again. She didn't turn around. We'll talk when I get back, Elias. He watched her go. He wouldn't be there when she got back. His phone buzzed. Julian again. Elias, I told you. Anything you have, I can take. Your devoted wife is mine now. And soon, she'll give me a child. Elias set the phone down. He looked at the massive wedding portrait on the wall. The two of them looked so happy. It made his chest ache. He grabbed a heavy brass candle holder and smashed the glass. Again and again, until the image was shredded. The next morning, Victoria returned after spending the night with Julian. She saw the shattered portrait and flew into a rage. Who did this? Who touched our photo? It was Mr. Thorne, ma'am, the maid whispered, trembling. He told me to give you these when you returned. She handed Victoria a phone and a flash drive. The rage died, replaced by a cold dread. Victoria plugged the drive into her laptop. Her face went white as the videos of her and Julian filled the screen. She shook as she opened Elias's phone. The chat history with Julian was all there. Julian had been taunting him for months. Victoria slammed the phone onto the desk. Lock down the city. Check every airport, every train station. Find him. As her security team scrambled, she collapsed in her chair. If Elias had known for months, this wasn't a tantrum. It was an escape. The phone rang. It was Julian. Victoria, my arm is fine. I'm waiting for you. I got the collar on. Normally, she would have been there in a heartbeat. Now, she felt a murderous rage. Julian had dared to provoke Elias. He had crossed her line. Meanwhile, Julian was preening in front of a mirror. He knew Elias was too proud to stay after that last text. He expected a divorce, and he expected Victoria to choose him, the loyal, easy lover, over the boring husband. He was one step away from becoming the new Mr. Sterling. The door to Julian's apartment was kicked open. A squad of men in black suits swarmed in. The lead guard didn't say a word. He simply grabbed Julian's arm and snapped it. Julian's scream echoed through the building. Are you crazy? I'm Victoria's favorite. She'll kill you for this. Mr. Vance, the guard said tonelessly, we are here on Ms. Sterling's orders. Julian froze. No, Elias sent you, didn't he? Using her name? She's carrying my child. She'd never do this. The guard didn't argue. He signaled his men. They broke Julian's other arm and both his legs before leaving him in a heap. When Julian woke up in the hospital, he received a text from Victoria. It was a photo of an abortion clinic discharge form. Then came a court summons. She was suing to reclaim every gift, every cent, and every piece of jewelry she had ever given him. His accounts were frozen. He couldn't even pay for the hospital bed he was lying in. Victoria was losing her mind. She had turned Chicago upside down and found nothing. After 48 hours of silence, she slammed her fist on her desk, glass shards cutting into her hand. She didn't feel the physical pain. She only felt the hole where Elias used to be. Where'd he go? She thought, forcing herself to be cold and analytical. If I were him, hiding from a woman with my resources, where would I go? Check every mentor Elias ever had. She ordered her team. Look for government-funded projects with top-secret clearance. Sites that don't exist on public maps. Elias had been at the research facility for a month. After a grueling 16-hour shift, his mentor asked how he was holding up. It's a heavy workload, Elias. You look exhausted. I'm fine, Elias said, wiping sweat from his brow. The work took up 98% of his brain power, leaving only 2% for Victoria. He still thought of her. 10 years wasn't something you could just delete. She was his first love, his wife, his everything. He knew that if he had stayed, he would have eventually forgiven her again. He was a moth to her flame, so he had to fly to a different continent. Good, the mentor said. We brought in an outside consultant to speed up the data analysis. Since you're the lead on this phase, you'll be her primary contact. She arrives this afternoon. Elias agreed, but when the expert walked in, he nearly dropped his clipboard. It was Dr. Eleanor Sterling, Victoria's aunt. Eleanor and Victoria were the same age, both geniuses in their respective fields. Victoria ruled the boardroom. Eleanor ruled the lab. Victoria was arrogant and cold. Eleanor was socially inept and brutally blunt. Her words were like acid. Elias had only met Eleanor 3 times in 10 years. The first time, Victoria had brought him home as her fiancé. Eleanor had looked at him and said to Victoria, "This is the man you're burning bridges for? You got a talent for picking through trash." Victoria had sent Eleanor to the hospital for that comment. The second time, Elias's professor had introduced him to Eleanor as a potential student. She had glanced at him and told the professor, "I don't take students who rely on family connections and pretty faces." Elias hadn't bothered to explain himself. He disliked her as much as she seemed to loathe him. And now, the third time. The air in the briefing room was thick with mutual distaste. Elias also panicked. If she told Victoria where he was finished. So, Eleanor drawled. Victoria's business is so big now, she can even buy her way into a DARPA-level project just to park her trophy husband somewhere. Trophy husband? Elias scoffed. She clearly didn't know about the divorce. Dr. Sterling, Elias said, his voice like flint. This is a workplace. Keep your insults and your family drama outside the gates. If you slow down my team, I have plenty of trashy words I can throw back at you. Eleanor's icy mask flickered with genuine shock. That afternoon, Elias took her through the lab, explaining the 101 failed experiments and the new improved data models. He spoke with a precision and brilliance that left her silent for 2 hours. When he finished, Eleanor let out a dry snort. You've certainly memorized the script well. Elias had had enough of her elitist posturing. He stepped close, grabbed her silk tie, and yanked her forward until their faces were inches apart. Aunt Eleanor, he whispered, a dangerous smirk on his lips. Are you picking on me because you have a crush? Is this how you get my attention? Eleanor's face turned a violent shade of red. She stammered, looking around the room frantically. You unhand me. What nonsense are you talking about? Elias didn't let go. Your methods are primitive, but I have to admit, you've succeeded. I'm paying attention now. He let go and walked away while she was still processing the overload. It worked. For the next week, every time Eleanor tried to be snide, she remembered that afternoon and swallowed her words. She didn't want him thinking she was flirting. Because of the silence, the project moved at light speed. A 3-year goal was reached in 12 months. But Elias didn't want to leave. He was terrified Victoria was still waiting. Then, news reached the lab. Victoria Sterling was getting remarried. Elias finally felt a weight lift. He moved out of the facility and into a quiet apartment in the city, arranged by his professor. He lived in peace for exactly 3 days. On the 4th day, as he walked into his foyer, a hand reached out from the shadows and gripped his wrist. He was slammed against the wall with such force it knocked the wind out of him. It was Victoria. Fear spiked in his chest. How are you here? Aren't you getting married today? He struggled, but she pinned him with her entire body, her breathing heavy and frantic. Elias, she rasped, her voice trembling with a terrifying obsession. Found you. I finally found you. He felt something wet hit his neck. She was crying. Let go of me. Go back to your wedding. Victoria let out a dark, bitter laugh. Wedding? Elias, you really wanted me to marry someone else. She stroked his cheek. I've spent a year in hell waiting for you. Every day was like breathing fire. The wedding was a lie, a ruse to make you lower your guard so you'd come out of hiding. She leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. Now that you're back, I'm never letting you go. Let's go home, Elias. Elias shook with terror. I'm not going anywhere with you. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Victoria's eyes flashed with a violent annoyance. Elias felt a surge of hope. The doorbell rang again. Then the sound of a key turning in the lock. Victoria's face darkened. Who else had a key to Elias's private sanctuary? The door opened. Dr. Eleanor Sterling walked in carrying several file folders. Elias, I brought this. She stopped dead. The two women stared at each other. Eleanor looked stunned. Victoria, what are you doing here? Isn't it your wedding day? Victoria's voice was like a razor. Aunt Eleanor, why do you have my husband's keys? Eleanor set the files down. I'm delivering archival data for the project. His professor is out of the country and asked me to handle it. And since he just moved in, I brought some groceries. Victoria's jealousy cooled slightly. They were colleagues. She turned to dismiss her aunt, but Eleanor spoke first. And you? Why are you here? There was no wedding. Elias and I had a misunderstanding. I had to lure him out. I see, Eleanor said, looking away. Marriage games, she thought. She felt a strange, unpleasant prickle in her chest. She turned to leave, but Elias lunged forward, grabbing Eleanor's sleeve. Help me. Please, don't let her take me. Elias hated Eleanor. He hated her arrogance and her insults. They were cousins-in-law, essentially. He knew she had no reason to help him, but she was his only exit. If Victoria took him now, he'd be a prisoner. Eleanor froze. She looked down at Elias and saw a look of pure, raw terror she had never seen on a man before. Something in her chest ached. Her logic told her to walk away. This was family business. Victoria was unstable, but Elias's tears were hitting her hand. Eleanor closed her eyes and sighed. She reached out and gently unpried his fingers from her arm. Elias's heart sank. She's abandoning me. But then, Eleanor stepped in front of him. shielding him from Victoria. He clearly doesn't want to go with you, Eleanor said. Whatever your misunderstanding is, you aren't taking him anywhere today. Victoria's eyes turned murderous. He is my husband. Step aside, Eleanor. You can't stop me. I have men downstairs. Is that so? Eleanor replied calmly. I brought 2 security officers from the National Lab to help me move the heavy data crates. They're in the lobby. The kind with high clearance permits and sidearms. Victoria's face twisted. She glared at Elias with a look that promised a future reckoning. Fine. I'll remember this, Eleanor. Elias. We aren't done. She stormed out. The moment the door closed, Elias collapsed. Eleanor caught him. Can you walk? He nodded, his face ghost white. She led him down to a plain black sedan. 2 female officers in civilian clothes opened the door. As they drove away, Elias watched the apartment disappear. He felt no relief, only a crushing exhaustion. Dr. Sterling, Elias whispered. Thank you. Eleanor gave a curt nod. After a long silence, Elias asked, Why did you hate me so much? What did I ever do to you? Eleanor hesitated. You really don't know? Know what? 3 days before Victoria introduced you to the family, I was staying at a hotel near the Midnight Lounge, Eleanor said. Elias's pulse quickened. The Midnight Lounge was a high-end club where he used to work as a freelance chauffeur to pay his tuition. In those 3 days, I saw you leave that club 16 different times, getting into cars with 16 different men. Men of all ages, all wealthy. I assumed, given Victoria was fighting her parents to marry you, that you were a high-end escort and she was being played. Elias stared at her. A hysterical laugh bubbled up in his throat. I was a designated driver, Eleanor. I was working 3 jobs. Eleanor went quiet. Then I saw you at the university. I thought Victoria bought your way in. But after working with you for a year, I realized I was wrong. You're brilliant. You're better than I was at your age. She cleared her throat, looking stiff. I let my biases cloud my judgment. I'm sorry. It was the most awkward apology Elias had ever heard, but he knew it was sincere. It's okay. You saved me today. That's more than enough. Eleanor took him to her own residence, a high-security, gated community. You'll stay here. Victoria won't be able to get past the gate. Elias fell into the guest bed and slept for 14 hours. When he woke up, his phone was buzzing. It was a restricted number. He knew it was her. He answered. Victoria, it's over. For the sake of what we had, just let me go. Elias, her voice was hoarse. I'd never hurt you. I just want to bring you home. I miss you so much it feels like I'm dying. I just want to see you. Elias's heart twisted. He knew she loved him. She'd probably die for him. But her love was a fractured, terrifying thing. She could love him and still sleep with Julian. She could love him and still lie to his face. And then what? Elias asked. I go back, I forgive you, and then I wait for the next video, the next pregnancy report? Victoria, infidelity isn't a mistake, it's a cycle. If I go back, our life would just be you cheating, me crying, you apologizing, and then you doing it again. I don't want that life. It won't happen again. I promise. You promised the first time, Elias reminded her. And instead of a promise kept, I got a baby that isn't mine. He sighed. We're divorced. Move on. Divorce? Victoria sounded genuinely confused. What are you talking about? We never signed anything. The realization hit her like a lightning strike. The morning she had rushed to Julian, the document Elias had given her. She had thought it was one of their date debt contracts they'd used for years, a silly romantic game they played. That morning, she whispered, that wasn't a game. That was a divorce settlement. Yes. The silence on the other end was deafening. Victoria felt the world collapsing. She had signed away her life's happiness because she was in a hurry to see her lover. In your leg? She asked suddenly, her voice trembling. Elias closed his eyes. My leg is ruined, Victoria. I'm a cripple. Victoria's breath hitched. How? What? Do you remember the day Julian broke his arm in your office? The day you diverted the best surgeon in the city to treat his scratch? I was in the same hospital. I had been hit by a car. My doctor begged for that surgeon. Your people told him that nothing was as important as Julian Vance's arm. Even if the other patient was dying, he heard a sickening sound on the other end, the sound of Victoria choking on her own blood. She collapsed, and the line went dead. Elias sat in the dark for a long time. He felt no joy in her suffering, only a hollow, bone-deep weariness. The next morning, Eleanor found him in the kitchen. She looked troubled. Elias, I need a favor. My parents are pushing me to marry. They've threatened to, well, let's just say they're being dramatic. If I don't bring a boyfriend home, they won't leave me alone. You want me to fake being your boyfriend? Your niece's ex-husband? Exactly. My parents are traditional and elitist. If they think I've chosen a man with your complicated history, They'll decide I'm better off single. It was a brilliant scorched earth tactic. Elias agreed, purely out of gratitude. That afternoon, they went to a high-end mall to buy him a suit for the Meet the Parents dinner. As they were leaving, Victoria was waiting by the car. She looked like a ghost. Elias, please. Just 5 minutes. There's nothing to say. Elias tried to walk past her. Suddenly, a man lunged out from behind a pillar. It was Julian Vance. He looked wretched, thin, dirty, and desperate. He grabbed Victoria's legs, sobbing. Victoria, I'm sorry. Please don't do this to me. I have nothing left. Julian had been blacklisted for a year. He couldn't get a job anywhere. He was living in a flop house, starving. He had waited months for this chance. Victoria, please. I'll be your dog again. Just give me enough to eat. Elias watched them for a moment, then turned to Eleanor. Let's go. Victoria tried to follow, but Julian wouldn't let go. In a fit of cold fury, Victoria kicked Julian squarely in the chest, sending him flying. He hit the pavement and coughed up blood before fainting from the shock. Victoria didn't even look back. She just stared at Elias's disappearing car. Eleanor's parents lived in a sprawling, old-money estate. When Eleanor introduced Elias as her boyfriend, the two seniors nearly had a stroke. Eleanor, this is Victoria's. This is scandalous, her mother gasped. I love him, Eleanor said with a straight face. I pursued him during our project. I'm going to marry him. Suddenly, the front door burst open. Victoria Sterling charged in, looking like a madwoman. She saw Eleanor wiping a smudge from Elias's lip and snapped. She lunged at Eleanor, throwing a punch that caught her aunt across the jaw. You bitch. You were planning this all along. Eleanor hit the floor, her glasses shattering. She didn't hesitate. She scrambled up and tackled Victoria. The two geniuses of the Sterling family were rolling on the dining room floor, smashing plates and tearing at each other like feral animals. Stop it, Elias screamed, throwing himself between them. He shoved Victoria back. That's enough. Victoria stood there, bleeding from the lip, looking at Elias with a broken, desperate expression. She saw him standing over Eleanor, protecting her. Elias, she sobbed. How could you do this to me? How could I? Elias's voice was a whip. You cheated twice. You made me a cripple. Why can't I be with your aunt? At least she's honest. The Sterling parents were frozen in shock. Victoria looked like she had been stabbed. She let the guards lead her out, her spirit finally broken. Get out. Eleanor's mother screamed at Elias. Both of you get out. Eleanor grabbed Elias's hand. We're leaving. In the car, Elias looked at Eleanor's bruised face. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. It's not. Eleanor said, checking her reflection. And it worked. They won't ask me to marry anyone ever again. They'll be too busy trying to save me from you. Elias realized he couldn't keep hiding behind Eleanor. He needed a clean break. He texted Victoria. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Our spot. Let's finish this. They met at a quiet cafe. Victoria looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Is there really no hope? She asked. 10 years, Elias. No. If I go back, you'll just break me again. I'd rather die than be your prisoner. Victoria flincheth. She saw the absolute conviction in his eyes. Her last hope died. I won't follow you anymore. But please, one last day. Just a day. Elias agreed. She took him to the alley where they first met. I wasn't there by accident, she confessed. I had liked you for a long time. I knew your father treated you like garbage. So I paid your neighbor, Mrs. Gable, to look out for you. All those times she gave you breakfast or a place to sleep. That was me. Elias was stunned. He had always thought it was just the kindness of a neighbor. They went to their high school. They stood by the oak tree where she first confessed to him. They remembered the snow, the cold, and the way their fingers finally intertwined. Then, the Ferris wheel at the pier. It was where Elias had proposed. As the wheel reached the top, fireworks exploded over Lake Michigan. Elias, truly? Nothing. Victoria cried into his shoulder as the carriage descended. Nothing. Elias stepped out of the carriage and walked away without looking back. He left the Sterling name and the 10 years of pain behind. The next day, Elias said goodbye to Eleanor. I'm leaving the city. I need to travel to find myself again. Eleanor looked uncharacteristically small. Will you come back? I have more projects starting. Maybe. I don't know. Elias. Eleanor called out as he reached the door. Now that you and Victoria are truly done. Could I? No. Elias interrupted gently. I know what you're going to ask, but I don't have the strength to love anyone else, Eleanor. Not for a long time. The light in Eleanor's eyes dimmed. Then, have a safe trip. Elias traveled for 2 years. He saw the mountains, the oceans, and met people who didn't know his name or his history. When he finally returned to the Midwest, he heard the news. Victoria Sterling was in a wheelchair. A year ago, Julian Vance had snapped. He had lost everything and blamed Victoria. He had stormed her birthday gala and stabbed her 26 times. She survived, but the nerves in her legs were severed. She would never walk again. Julian was in a high-security psychiatric ward, screaming Victoria's name at the walls. Elias sat on a park bench and watched the wind stir the leaves. He felt a strange, quiet pity, but no desire to reach out. The cycle was finally broken. His phone buzzed. It was his old mentor. Elias, I heard you're back. Interested in a new project? I am, Elias replied. He stood up, adjusted his gait to accommodate his limp, and began walking toward the lab. Story complete.